All right, it's 10 o'clock. We're going to get started here shortly. I'm going to give a few minutes for some people to still come in, and we will get started. All right, we're going to get started. Hi, my name is Garrett. I'll tell a little bit about myself here in a little bit. I'm the CEO here at VanderNet Technology Services out of Branson, Missouri, and we're a cybersecurity focused IT solutions company. Everything we do is through the lens of cybersecurity. And today, I just want to say thanks for joining us. Today, it's March 20th, and many of you have finished your business tax deadline. And now all you have left is the consumer tax deadline, the personal tax deadline. But many of you have filed extensions for some of your customers, and many of you just got it done. You got the information you needed from your customers, and the taxes are done. Which congratulations to you. I know you guys wait. You guys look forward to this moment every single time of year to get through these deadlines and get another tax season behind you. Kudos to you. I would just want to say thank you for taking time out of your schedule to be here today for this webinar. We're going to be going over the FTC safeguards, which took place last June, effective in 2023. And there was an addendum made at the end of 2023. And we'll go over that today a little bit in regard to what's changed in the FTC safeguards. Most importantly, we're going to go over just kind of a brief history of like cybersecurity, why this is important, why it's important for your firm to take this seriously. And I'm so glad to have you along the way as we go through these slides today and learn about the FTC safeguards and why it's important for you to protect your accounting firm, not only your accounting firm, your people, your data, your infrastructure, but more importantly, why it's important for you to take it serious to protect your customers' information and data. So really, this is about what your accounting firm needs to know about the FTC safeguards and what you need to do today to be protected. You know, we talked about the deadline being last June, but if you don't have these things in place, the best time to get it instituted and going is now. Today is the day. And I'm encouraged that you're here because I know that means that you're interested in learning more and hopefully taking this serious so you can get some of these things in place. And we'll talk more about the things that you need to have in place and why it's important that you partner with a professional to make sure that these things are in place correctly to ensure that you are able to continue to do what you do so well, which is taking care of your customers. And so I'm going to go over a brief history of our company, VanderNet. We started out as just a traditional break fix company, which just means you break it, you call us, we fix it. We evolved through to becoming just a IT provider, providing managed services agreements. And then really what happened in 2020 was just unprecedented with COVID and everything shutting down. The best way that I can describe what happened in 2020 is everybody, you know, in IT, we just thought, hey, everybody's underneath the same building. We put everybody behind a firewall. You have just the basic things that you need to have in place and you're good to go. And you're secure and everything's fine. But what happened in 2020, as I call it, it's like the anthill, and the anvil falls out of the sky and hits the anthill. And what happens? All the ants just scatter everywhere. And what really transpired is all of these workers that were working in the building together behind some of those corporate firewall protections, all of a sudden, they're all working from home. Not because they wanted to, but in order to be in business, to stay in business and do the things that you needed to do to stay in business, everybody still had to work. And so everybody went home. And what we found was, because that anvil fell out of the sky and hit that anthill, now we've got corporate devices that were behind those levels of protection at the office are now on home networks. And not only home networks, who knows what was on the home networks, but there was other, the spouses coming home and bringing their work devices, and there's kids that are, doing whatever they're doing, gaming or what. The risk factor just went through the roof. And so what that did for us at VanderNet is that made us rethink. We've got to rethink security. And where, we didn't have to think about it before as much, it really became a big, big problem. And so as things evolved, we've moved from just a managed service provider to a managed service security provider. And we'll talk about the details of what those things look like and how that's different. But our goal is at VanderNet here, we are growing a team of cybersecurity professionals that are truly focused around performing 3 functions for your business and how we can take care of you. And I'm just briefly talk about how we've transitioned from an IT to break fix to managed services, and just taking care of just your basic IT lifecycle replacement, the things that you're so familiar with today, to then really being focused on security. And security is just extremely important. And we've really had to change the way we look at things. We've literally had to change the lenses in regard to how we look at technology and how the business uses technology. Because if you don't look at it through a security perspective, then the hackers are saying, this is an easy target and this is easily exploitable. And before you know it, we're dealing with full-on incident response. We're dealing with a situation of compromise. And we really hope this doesn't happen to you, but a breach situation where they have not only got into your network, but then they've exfiltrated and sent all of the data out to the dark web, to where it's being sold. And then you're being ransomed, meaning they're asking you to pay them money in order for you to decrypt all of the encrypted software or all of your encrypted documents and your client information that's been encrypted on your servers. And so you pay them, and they're supposedly in exchange going to give you a key that's going to allow you to unlock your business and be able to perform exactly the way you used to, with one caveat. You will never be able to operate exactly how you used to be able to operate your business. And here's why. All of your data is now no longer in your possession, and it's in the possession of hackers. And that is extremely detrimental to your business, because now, whereas maybe you paid the ransom, maybe they sent you the unlock key so you can get your data unencrypted that they've encrypted. But that's fine, right? You can continue. You can get right back to business, right? Processing those tax returns, doing tax planning with your customers, getting back to that bookkeeping. With one exception, they have all your customer data and information, and they will sell it on the dark web. You think you're transacting like you did yesterday before you got compromised or had a breach. But the reality is, the cybersecurity reality is, they're selling all this information on the dark web, and all of your clients' personal identifiable information is gone. And you can do 2 things about it. You can say nothing about it, or you could do what you're supposed to do and follow the FTC's guidelines, which we're going to get into, and notify them that you've had a breach and that you're instituting your incident response plan, and you have a plan to recover. But at the end of the day, business is built on trust. And that trust, once it is burned and the trust is gone, it is extremely hard to get it back. especially when you have to let your clients know the type of information that the hackers got, which as an accounting firm and a financial services firm, you have it all. You've got first name, last name. You got dates of birth. You got children's dates of births and names, social security numbers. You got their bank account information because that's how they pay for their taxes. If it's an electronic payment, or that's how they get their tax return back. You've got it all. You understand why this is important. This is why you're here today, is to learn, how do we mitigate this? How do we fight against the cyber criminals so we can stay in business and continue doing what we've always done? And that's hopefully growing a successful business that you can leave a legacy. You can build wealth for yourself and your staff and your team. And so that's why it's important. And that's why we've evolved from just a managed service provider to a managed security service provider, and why security is super important. I'll tell you a little bit about me. My name is Garrett Vanderpool. I'm the CEO here at VanderNet, which I've already stated. And I just want to let you know, I got married in 2009. I've been married to my best friend for 14 years. I have 4 kids. I surrendered my life to Jesus in 2018, and completely, and things have changed, and business has been an immense blessing to my life and to my family. And I've learned a lot through this season, moving into cybersecurity and really doubling down and becoming a cybersecurity expert. One of my personal objectives in 2023 that I was able to accomplish is just working on, what does a balanced life look like? What does success look like when you balance both business? We all have this paradigm where we're trying to figure out, how do I balance my professional life and business and my personal life when I'm off? And then how do I segment them so they don't, intertwine, or that they're equal? And to be honest with you, it's been quite a challenge, but I am here to say that it can be done, and it can be done well. The key to a balanced life, which I feel like I've made great strides and succeeded a lot in 2023 on, is right here in the head. Being able to detach, to be able to segment and get your thoughts out and write them down, and say, hey, I'm going to work on that tomorrow. So that's who I am. And I love efficiency. I love books. I love learning. I'm a continual student, which is even more important as to why I'm in cybersecurity and why I'm passionate about what I do here at VanderNet, leading cybersecurity professionals every single day to deliver security for your business, protecting your data, your people, your infrastructure. We should all be lifelong learners, and that's one thing that I am committed to as a CEO of VanderNet, is always be learning, always rethinking, what does security look like today? Because what's got you to today is not going to get you to tomorrow. And it's important that you have ambitious individuals that are leading your cybersecurity for your business and your future technology, because if they're not, then we're becoming stagnant and complacent, and that's not where you want to be with the information age and cybersecurity and where we're at today. So let's define what rethinking secure looks like. What is interesting about this slide is I did a presentation a few months ago in regard to the FTC safeguards, and somebody pointed out redefining what IT looks like in the modern age. And I thought that was pretty good, because when you rethink secured, we really are redefining what IT in itself looks like in the modern age. And like going back to what I just said on the last slide, what got you to today is not going to get you to tomorrow. And that's why it's super important to define what IT looks like in the modern age and what rethinking secured looks like. So let's go over, what are the FTC safeguard rules anyways? And the key is the FTC is defined. They're here to help protect consumer information. And one thing you will learn if you do research on the FTC is it's actually, the FTC is the larger name, but there's actually subsidiaries of the FTC that focus on specific things. Just some examples of those subsidiaries would be protection of competition. So there's a Bureau of Competition. Just it's simply looking at businesses, making sure there's no monopolies in the market space. There's an economic division of the FTC, and what it mainly focuses on is what is the decision that the FTC, like the rules that the FTC puts into place, what is the impact of those rules on commerce? And they do math all day. They do all the statistical information and trying to figure out, if we make these rules, how will that affect commerce? The other division, specifically to the one we're talking about, is the Bureau of Consumer Protection, and making sure that people's information is protected and that it's being handled correctly. And that kind of goes into the FTC safeguards and where we're at today. So really, when we talk about the FTC safeguards rule, it's really to maintain safeguards to protect security of customer information. And you can't protect the security of customer information if you don't know what the current security situation is. You don't even know where to start to protect consumer information unless you look at the current threat landscape. And that's what we're going to do today. Right now is we're going to look at what does the current threat landscape look like. And so examining today's security threats, one of the things that the FBI does every year is they release a report, and it's an IBC report, and it's all focused on examining how hackers were trying to compromise businesses over the last period of the year. And then they have like a reflection. And so they publish this report annually, and it's really great information. And one of the things right out of the bat that we examine here is that you can see over the trend of from 2001 to 2022, kind of small, steady growth along the way. And then we hit about 2019. And we all know what happened in 2019. That was the onset of COVID, right? And so then we move into 2020, and then you just see it just go way up. And I think it's important that things have changed. Cyber attacks have gone way up. And so you, as a business owner or a firm manager, have to be proactive. We can't be reactive in the modern age of cybersecurity. We've got to institute some very basic things and some very complicated things. And so that's where we sit in this 21st century, where cybersecurity should be front of mind, not back of mind. And so as we look at this graph, you can tell, obviously, things are trending up, and cyber attacks are at an all-time high. And you would think in a year, you're like, hey, maybe that's just going up and it'll come back down, kind of like the stock market trend even flows, right? Unfortunately, that is not the case when it comes to cybersecurity and criminals. We just had, it's worth noting, United Healthcare just got hit with a full-blown ransomware attack, and completely took out their systems, and they ended up paying a $20-some-odd million ransom. They paid it. And so if people are paying ransoms to get their data unlocked, kind of like what we were talking about, where you would pay the ransom and then you get the key, at least you hope you get the key, that you can unlock your data, that's what they did. They did that. And so you can only imagine, if cyber criminals and hackers are getting $20 million payouts, do you think it's going to stop? No, it's not going to stop. It's only going to continue. The trend is only going to continue. And if that's the case, then it's even more important that you have to take this personally. You have to take this personally as a business owner or a practice manager to make sure that you protect your customers' information. And that's what the FTC safeguards is all about. So the next slide, we're going to talk about the top 5 sectors that were targeted in 2023. You'll see healthcare being number 1, and we just talked about United Healthcare and their situation, which, let's just say, people say, my decisions don't affect other people. And I hate to say this, but that is dead wrong. Actually, I love to say it because it's true. It's dead wrong. Your decisions, the decisions you make today, will affect others. And then especially when it comes to protecting your customer information. Let me say that again. Your decisions you make today are extremely important when it comes to protecting your customer information. And we have to look at that. And United Healthcare, what could they have done better? And we're going to find out more as things unfold with that situation. But they're the number one target vector is healthcare. But who's number two? You are. You are. CPA firms, accounting firms, financial services, wealth management, the banking industry. You guys are the number one or number two attack vector. And why is that? Well, we obviously know healthcare has all the information. And most of the time, they have it in bulk. There's a lot of information that the healthcare industry keeps, retains, all the history on every doctor's visit, every test you took. They have all the information. But you have all the information too. You might be number two today, but I foresee that financial services industry being the accounting and all of this, I think you guys are going to start to become the number one. And the reason why, and we'll talk about this, is that we have done cybersecurity risk assessments. We focus on the financial services industry. We focus on accounting firms and wealth management offices. And what we found traditionally in the accounting firms, you guys are really, really good at what you do. You guys take care of your customers. You do bookkeeping. You do tax planning. You do audits. You do tax returns. But a lot of times, it's usually in a fast-paced situation, and client information isn't really protected well, which makes you a big target. And we've done these cybersecurity risk assessments on these businesses, and we're finding millions and millions of dollars worth of risk. And these firm owners that we've done these cybersecurity risk assessments, they have to make a decision. What are they going to do? What decision are they making today to protect that customer information? So financial services industry, number two, government, education, technology. But we're here to talk about you today. We're here to talk about the financial services industry, your accounting firm, and what does the FTC safeguards mean for you and your firm? And I think it's important that we get right into that. So moving into the next slide, we'll talk more specifically about what that looks like from an FTC safeguard standpoint. And the first thing that we'll talk about is risk assessments by qualified individual. It's important. Unfortunately, it's not just hey, here's some check boxes and you either have these things in place or you don't. It's more in depth than that. It's really understanding what to look for. Is this being done? Is this being observed and actually done? And so in our industry, we talk about, which I love, cybersecurity mirrors actually very well with the accounting industry and auditing and everything like that. And the reason why that is we have audits, right? Audits look at what? Logs. When you go look at a financial system, you're looking at the historical information that has been put into the system and when it was and when was this transaction placed. So it's very similar in our cybersecurity space. Logs are great, but logs are only good for an audit. When you're performing an audit, you're reviewing and looking after something has already been done. It's a reactive, revisiting a situation that already took place and occurred and saying, what can we derive from this data and information? Was there controls in place? We talk about gap in the accounting industry, general acceptable practices and accounting practices. And we look at the controls. Do they have those necessary controls in place? And if not, what's our recommendation out of those we've looked at the logs, the audit, and figured out that there isn't? Is there evidence that those controls are in place? Can we perform a specific accounting function and see what controls actually stop that fraud from happening? Is there evidence that says, yes, those controls are in place? And it's the same thing for a risk assessment, is we need to know if those controls are in place. We need to know if they exist, but do they work? Then we look at risk management plan and ongoing evaluations. Unfortunately, this is not a once and done situation. We would love for this to be. It's kind of like, if you look at it from your perspective in your industry and tax returns, do you do tax returns once and it's done? No, you do it every single year. And thus it is with the a cybersecurity risk assessment. A risk assessment is an ongoing measure that needs to be continued. So we have two forms of risk assessments. You would have like an annual snapshot, kind of like your tax return. That's an annual snapshot of your tax return from your financial state from the former year. That's what a annual cybersecurity risk assessment would look like, right? But an ongoing would be similar to what you guys do, right? On a retainer basis, where you guys are actively ongoing and evaluating the business and the functions of the business while the business is going on. And that is what an ongoing cybersecurity risk assessment is ongoing management, evaluating the risk and the controls, making sure the evidence are in place. The next thing that you have to have in place from this is employee training and monitoring. It's one thing to say, hey guys, don't click on emails. It's a whole nother thing to be actively having not only conversations about don't click on emails, but hey, here's what we've seen hackers doing. And here's some micro training videos that are going to help you get up to speed fast. We get these videos, we receive these videos, and then we push them out to your team. And your team is educated near real time, actually, what's happening in the world. And you can be up to date. So you know what to look out for as it hits your inbox and say, I just did a training on this. I know that is a phishing email, and I am not going to click on it, and I'm going to report it. Let me tell you this. We recently have done cybersecurity risk assessments on accounting firms right now, this year, during tax season. And I'll tell you, do you think they passed in flying colors? Do you think that they fell captive to the DocuSign phishing emails we sent out, or the UPS package that said that they failed to deliver the package? No, unfortunately. They fell captive. They clicked the links. They're anticipating people sending tax documents in any form or fashion that they can receive them, because we know your pain. We know that you're waiting to receive the necessary information you need from your customers in order to perform the tax return that they're expecting you to do. But it's extremely hard to do the tax return when you're trying to pull teeth from your customers to get the necessary information you need from them in order to do the tax return. And so it's super easy to fall prey to emails like DocuSign, Adobe Sign, all of these things or Dropbox links, because you're anticipating that no matter what avenue or fashion you're going to receive this information, you're going to take it because you're waiting to do it to get those tax returns done. And honestly, we don't blame you, but you need to be educated. The threat is real. And it's not just, hey, don't click on phishing emails. You need to know what to look for. You need to know how to determine if it's really from your customer. Maybe it's legitimately from your customer, but what if their Dropbox account got compromised? How do you know? What are the indicators that would help you understand that has been compromised so you don't fall prey and your organization doesn't fall captive and have a compromise in a data breach? You need to know about those things. So we do employee trainings, micro videos. We're getting the intel. We're sending it out to your team. That way you can be up to date on the latest situation of what's actually happening in the world today from a risk standpoint. The last thing is the incident response plan. And I'm going to dive a little deeper on that. Having an incident response plan is great. An incident response plan says, if this happens, this is how we're going to respond. But it has to go greater and deeper than that. And I think it's important to understand that we have to have a plan in regard to what data do we collect. You're already familiar with privacy statements. That's all part of the FTC guidelines. You have to have privacy statements that you send out to your customer every single year. That's instituted. It's been in commission for a long time, but you have to have a plan for what type of data and information are you collecting from your customer? How are you treating that data? And then what's the classification of that data from a sensitivity standpoint? Are you taking it serious? Okay. If you're taking it serious, then we've got to treat it serious. And we got to say, this is the type of information that will be stored here. This is the type of information that can be stored here. We do not store this information in email. And this is how we respond when a client sends us an email with sensitive information. Incident response. Incident is the key word here. That means something's happened and now we're reacting to it. The key is that you have a managed plan of how you're receiving information, how you're managing the information, and how you're protecting the information. They want to know all of that. And you need to be able to provide that. When you're audited, you need to be able to provide that. So let's move on. We'll go specifically kind of conducting a risk assessment, how it's important that you do have a qualified individual. It's not something that just happens. You need somebody that can look at the specific data, your people, and your infrastructure. And we're taking it even further because a lot of people think of data. I don't store data locally. That's one of the things we hear all the time. Well, we don't have any data on our computers. And what's absolutely crazy about that statement, every single cybersecurity risk assessment we have performed to date, we have found a lot of data on their computers. We use cloud applications. That's something we hear a lot about, right? We use the cloud. We use the cloud. All of our data is in the cloud. And I saw a funny meme the other day that says your cloud is somebody else's computer in somebody's basement. Whereas that might not exactly be true. There's some truth to it. Somebody else's response, you think somebody else is responsible for that data that's in the cloud. So I think it's important that as part of conducting this risk assessment, the cloud is examined and thought about. How are we protecting that data in the cloud? And if we truly are using cloud applications, then how are we protecting the data that's locally? And what data are we keeping locally? A risk assessment is extremely important because the goal is that you have what we call least privilege. Only the people that should have access to the data at the time they have a functional role that would require them to access that data, and that it's being backed up in the event that something specific were to happen to your organization. So there's so much more to this risk assessment, but it's just we're looking for authorization, that there is authorization in place, an understanding if any of it's being misused, is the data being altered, and what happens if the data is destroyed? Is there a point of recovery? Next is we're going to go over risk management plan and ongoing evaluations. This is just a brief description explaining kind of the flow of the information and things that would need to be in place. We'll just run through this really quickly. We're going to implement periodically review of access controls. You're going to know what you have and where it's at. Do you encrypt your customer information on the system and when it's in transit, which means When it's locally not being used, is it encrypted? When you're transmitting this information via secure document transmission, yes, come on everybody. We're not sending this information in an email. We're using what we would call purpose-built applications to transmit this information if it needed to be transmitted. Some of you guys use Thomson Reuters. Some of you guys use, Drake is another example of people, document portals that people would have to securely send and transmit information. There's other elements of ways to securely transmit information. Those are just too specific off the top of my head. How do you access your applications? Are you using them in the cloud? Is there MFA? Do you have MFA locally? What are the barriers to the information? What are the walls that you've put up between somebody sitting down at the computer and the information and where it's stored? Are you implementing multi-factor authentication? How do you dispose of customer information securely? How long are you hanging on to that information? Raise your hand if you're an information hoarder. You hang on to information longer than you should hang on to it. We call that additional risk, and you should stop it. You shouldn't hang on to information longer than you should hang on to that information. And we'll talk more specifically about those periods of time. But you should not hang on to information longer than you need to hang on to that information. And you need to dispose of that information correctly to make sure that it's not accidentally on a backup drive or a flash drive that got put into a backpack and then ended up somewhere. That's not how we dispose of customer information. There are practical, secure ways of doing that, and we want to help you with that. And then lastly, maintaining logs of users authorization activity, keeping it, which is the logs part, which your system should be logging who accessed what, date, time. When people start accessing a bunch of stuff all at the same time, that should throw a flag out. That should be looked at. That should be examined. Because if not, that's a good indicator that your system has been compromised and there's a breach. They're taking your information out of the system. But if you don't know until you get the flashy red banner across your screen that says, "We've encrypted everything. Here's our Bitcoin wallet. Pay us. Otherwise, we're leaking all your information." First off, you hope you get the key to decrypt everything. Secondly, do you really think they're not going to leak your information? I would say think again. So the other thing here is keep an eye out for unauthorized access. Don't just keep logs. We need to be actively monitoring those logs and seeing who's accessing them, when they're accessing them. It's extremely important that we're constantly watching those things, and our professionals watch those things. We're watching them 24/7, night and day. When something happens, we are notified. So the key to that is if you're watching it, you're notified about it, then you can respond faster, which means hopefully you get to it in a time where you're able to identify the problem, isolate the problem, which means contain it, and then treat the problem before it becomes a big problem, bigger issue. Okay, that's all great, right? So next is employee training and monitoring. We just talked about this. It's important to actively be training your employees. Security measures today are not the same security measures tomorrow. So it's an active, ongoing conversation. Your team needs to know that this is important to you. I heard a statement recently about parenting, and it says that what you do in moderation, your kids will do in excess. So I would take this to the business bank today, and I would say, what you do is in moderation as a business leader for your organization. If you don't take data privacy and security seriously, you might as well expect your employees not to take it serious as well. What you do in moderation as a leader, your employees will do in excess if it's allowed. And so it's important that you take security of your people, your data, and your infrastructure, extremely important. And that comes to training and monitoring the accesses to your system in an ongoing fashion and manner. Having an incident response plan. We talked about that. Not only just having an incident response plan, it all comes back at VanderNet. We always say it always goes back to a policy. What does the policy say about this? And we're huge advocates here at VanderNet of what we call predetermined outcomes. If this happens, this is how we respond to this. And that's what an incident response plan is all about. When the building's on fire, that's not the time to determine how we're going to get out of the building. Lots of bad things happen in this situation when the building's on fire and you don't know how to get out of the building. So that's where the predetermined plan, the incident response plan, comes into place. It's a predetermined plan. That's why when you go into any commercial building or government building, that's why they have those rosters on the door that say all of these situations and scenarios, and this is how we respond to those situations, scenarios. So that's what an incident response plan is all about. We want to define the threat, and we're going to define how we respond to that type of situation based on the threat. And so it's important that you have a very exhaustive incident response plan and that your providers are working with you on making sure that those are in place. Can I say something? There's a lot of providers out there today that are selling cybersecurity as an add-on plan. And that's really bad for your business. It's not an add-on plan. What that means, if it's an add-on plan, it means it's moderation for them and not an excess for them. And that's extremely important because you need to know that your place is secure. You need to have a plan when a situation happens. This isn't a value-added service. This is a lifestyle, and it's important that you take it important today, that you identify this as important, and we protect our customers' information. It should be used in marketing. You should be able to securely say you protect your customers' information. We were recently in an office with a meeting of a CEO of a larger accounting firm. And their IT director was in the room with us, and we were having a conversation concerning security and concerns that we maybe would have for the business. And what we identified was that going back to the leader, what you do in moderation, your team will do in excess. And what we found out is that the director of IT was quickly able to log into the accounting systems he had saved his password on his computer, like on his desktop. So he just double clicked on the icon and it loaded him up into the most secure information that the entire organization had. And so it comes back to, you need to have a policy. What does the policy say? And as an organizational leader, you need to be following the policy just like you're asking everybody else to do. And so having an incident response plan, establish the goals of your plan, create internal processes your company will take action on in response to a security event, have clear roles and responsibility, define decision-making authority. That's part of your plan. Communications and information sharing both inside and outside your organization. Have conversations with your cybersecurity insurance plan or your company who your cybersecurity insurance is through. Have conversations with them as to involve them part of the planning process, because you need to know who to go to first. Do you go to the authority? Do you go to the FBI or the Secret Service, or do you go to your insurance company first? Those are all plans that those all need to be part of the incident response plan. Provide procedures in documenting, reporting security events of your companies and your company's response to those situations. And then post-mortem, how do you clean up after whatever happened? And have different levels of scale of how you respond to that, right? If it's small, you can respond smaller. If you've evaluated that the situation's a little bit bigger, you need to respond bigger, and you need to have an understanding that you're going to respond bigger. Recently, we had a vendor that were examined that we a vendor that we had done business with, and I was sitting at home on a Saturday night, and before I went to bed, I just opened up my emails, and I got an email from them that says, "We're alive and well. Don't worry, we're stronger than ever." And I was thinking, I was like, I've never received an email like this from them. What is going on? I opened it up, and they had fell victim to a ransomware attack through more than likely a business email compromise. And through that situation, they were down for over a week. And I said, "What customer information or data do you think was touched?" And they quickly responded back and they said, "No customer data was affected or touched." And it goes back to that trust point. They were down for a week, and we didn't find out for over a week that they were down. Trust is huge. Communicate with your customers in a timely fashion, and that needs to be all a part of this incident response plan for your organization. I'm talking to you today because you're either the practice owner, a decision maker for your firm, and today is the day to make a decision. What are you going to do about it? It's not, we can say it's about the FTC safeguards all day long because they're true. They are in place. They are law. But at the end of the day, I'm really just talking to you about what you should have in place because you care deeply about your customers, not because of some law that has passed that's making you do things. We hate people telling us what we have to do. But when we really truly care about our clients, we do these things because we love our customers, not because of some law. The law helps us make it happen, but we do it because we love our customers. So we come back to it. We say, how long will it take to implement these safeguards? Great question. I'm so glad you asked. It can take anywhere between 4 to 6 months to get the base level of these FTC safeguards done and in place. 4 to 6 months, just baseline, base level. We follow a framework here at VanderNet called NIST, and it's 800-171-Rev2. And I think it's important that you understand that because that framework is much bigger than FTC safeguard laws and protecting customer information. It definitely helps us protect the customer information. But like I said here, to get some of the baseline levels of stuff implemented, it can take 4 to 6 months. But when you really care about security of your customer information, it's going to take longer than that. Because with the NIST framework and the controls that need to be put into place for that, there's over 105 individual controls that have to be put into place for your firm. And you can't do that. And we'll talk more about that in regard to your options here in a second. But it's important that you understand June 9th last year, we're not a year away from it yet, but we're almost. Last year, June 9th is when they instituted it. And originally, the FTC safeguards first came out in like 2002, 2003. So this is really the first huge revision of the FTC safeguards since COVID and since 2000, I think 3 originally. So 10 years. It was well overdue. But it's important that you understand that they extended the deadline. It was originally December 9th of 2022, but it's important to understand that they realized there was a shortage of qualified individuals that was able to perform what they were asking. I'm wondering if it was that subcommittee of the FTC that ran the economics reports and impact on businesses and are like, wait a second, there's not enough qualified individuals out here to perform what we're asking all of these millions of small businesses, medium businesses to be able to actually pull this off. And so they gave extended deadlines. So now let's talk about what changed. What's changed since June 9th, 2023? And this is what's changed. At the end of the year, they made a revision and they said, you know what, 500 records, we need reporting on that. We need to know if 500 records, at least 500 records are touched, you need to report this compromise, this situation, not a breach, a compromise. If somebody got into your system and they had access to see the 500 thing, you need to be notifying that somebody was in your system. You're currently instituting your incident response plan. You have 30 days. You have 30 days to report it. Otherwise, you will receive up to, I think it's like 43,000. I think it's 43 or $44,000 fine per incident. So it's up to them to determine what the scope is of how many records. And even if you have duplicate entries of records, so say you have a social security number and then it's duplicated, that's identified as a separate record. So you start to do the math, this adds up really, really fast. You could be there quick and not only be dealing with the fines imposed by the FTC, but what the fallout is from lawsuits, credibility, recovery. What's it going to cost you to recover? Can I say something? All of that needs to be included in your incident response plan. Like, you should know kind of what it's going to cost you to recover from a situation. So let's continue in this. So that's all great and all, but what? This is time consuming. This is going to take a lot of time. We already established baseline 4 to 6 months to get it implemented. This requires a qualified professional. And let's just speak to the bottom left sector here for a second. It's above 90% of internal IT departments qualification. Hey, let me just say something. We love internal IT departments. At VanderNet, we love IT. We love internal IT departments. We're not here to take internal IT's job. You have a very, very important role to play in your organization. And we understand that here at VanderNet. We understand that the business lifeline, the heartbeat is with you. You guys are responsible for the day in and day out of IT management. We're not here to take your job. We're here to come alongside you and help you. We want to be an advocate for you in your organization and your business because we understand your value. Your leadership needs to understand your value and what you bring to your organization. And we're here to help encourage your value inside your organization. But we're here to bring cybersecurity. We're here to bring an assessment across your organization to help you understand your risk. Because you can't protect what you don't know to protect. And we have to define what does the risk look like for your business. And that risk changes. And that's why ongoing risk examination is extremely important. Data moves inside your organization. And so we're here to come alongside internal IT and say, hey, we know what you do on a daily basis, and we highly respect that. We're here to help you institute cybersecurity and protect your organization's people, data, and infrastructure. So last thing is, while you wait, you're still at risk. And so it's important. Here are your options. You need to understand your options. You can try to piecemeal it together yourself. You can try to come up with a plan just to check the boxes and hope it makes it. Hopefully it's sufficient enough to make you compliant. Or you can partner with professionals, a qualified team of professionals. And that's what we're here at VanderNet. We are a team of professionals. This is what we do day in and day out. We help you examine and understand your risk. And then we also help you manage that risk here at VanderNet. We're here to help. We're a business partner. We're not a vendor. We are a strategic partner to help you bring success to your organization. And we want to do that for you. We want to help you navigate the crazy waters when it comes to cybersecurity today. And the threats are changing and ever evolving. And I can say with confidence, we love helping businesses protect their people, data, and infrastructure. And we do that through what we call a defense in depth approach. There's layers of security. And at VanderNet, we're constantly looking at, this is the threat we just heard about. Where would we have stopped that threat inside of all of the defense in depth stuff that we have in place? Going back to the NIST framework, we said the baseline implementation, 4 to 6 months. There's actually over 105 individual controls that have to be in place in order to secure your people, your data, and your infrastructure. And you can look at the figures on the screen. It's pretty funny. You got the cops and the guys, the traditional, like, we're here to help kind of mentality. But the reality is, you need help. And like we said on the former slide, you can do it yourself, and we're okay with that. But we really want you to get it right. Because the difference between getting it right and getting it wrong is getting it wrong means you could be potentially out of business tomorrow. Getting it right means you might have an incident, but guess what? It's going to be identified. It's going to be isolated. It's going to be contained. The goal is the least amount of pain to your organization. That is the goal, right? It's not a matter of if you're going to get a situation. It's a matter of when. And when happens, we want to be prepared. We want to have a plan. But the key is to have layers and to stop it as fast as possible. And that's what we do here at VanderNet. Our cybersecurity protections are stronger protections than you'll get anywhere else. And I think it's key. At VanderNet, we're focused on delivering better value, faster outcomes, and stronger protections. Those are our 3 positional points for you. And we'd love to talk to you more about delivering better value and how we do that for our customers day in and day out. We'd love to talk to you more specifically about how we're able to deliver faster outcomes than ever before. And last but not least, extremely important, is stronger protections. We want to talk to you about how we can secure your organization. We say this, I've said this several times throughout the presentation today, how we're going to secure your people, your data, and your infrastructure. Let's have a conversation. So, what are the next steps? So in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen, there's a QR code next to rethinksecure.com. If you'll scan that QR code with your phone, it will pull up a booking site. And the key with the booking site is that it allows you to schedule a cybersecurity strategy session with us. It's a 15-minute free of charge consult where we get to learn more about your business and you get to learn a little bit about us. Just to have a conversation in regard to cybersecurity, maybe your IT, maybe managed IT as well. We encompass that with our cybersecurity, but we're here to protect you. We're here to have a conversation. We're friendly. We absolutely love protecting your business, and we want to have a conversation with you. So scan that QR code in the bottom left-hand corner and book a 15-minute cybersecurity strategy session with us. And then last but not least today, if you look on the far right of the screen, you'll see bonus for training attendees. It's just a white paper, something we have for you, a little free takeaway today to give you more information and to help you be better educated when it comes to cybersecurity. And I just want to close and say thank you. Thank you for being here today. Thank you for caring about your firm, your customers, your information. That says a lot about you. This says a lot about your company. You care, and that's extremely important because it's not a matter of if, but it's a matter of when. And we want to help you. We want to help your business be successful. Thank you for coming out today. We look forward to connecting with you through the cybersecurity strategy session and being your partner in protecting your business and helping you manage your risk. Thank you.